Hare Rama, Hare Rama, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada ki jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai. Radhacharan Srila Haridas Thakur ki jai. Prem Shri Shri Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Radhacharan Srivasari Gaura Bhaktivedanta ki jai. Radha Krishna Gopal Shamakund Radhakund Giri Govardhan ki jai. Vrindavan Dham ki jai. Sri Navadvip Mayapur Dham ki jai. Pantala Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Nitai Gaura. I think there's a build-up again of the noise. Can you hear? So maybe have to turn it. It's again on the microphone, I think. Could you grab some seats for the ladies here in case any, and could you sit over here and then? Yeah, everyone should take a seat. There's no need to be on the floor when the seats are there. Sounds good, yeah? No problem. Coming up again. You have to put some, you know, in studios they have these sound mats. Do you know them? It absorbs the echo from the concrete. So just round about where the speakers are and a little above here, if you put some of those mats, you'll get rid of this problem. It'll absorb the sound instead of it bouncing around. Yeah. So yesterday we spoke a little about time on the smaller levels, going up to the demigods aboard on Pushkara Dweep. And then we spoke a little about the higher places, Mahaloka, Janaloka, Tapaloka, Satchaloka. These are from the third canto, chapter 11. In the fifth canto, there's a little more discussion about the planets and about the nature of how time passes in those places. And we'll speak on that today because then we can explain the actual structure of the universe. So let me first just pay my obeisances. Vanchakalpatra Vishchara Kripa Sindhubhya Bhakti-tanam Bhakti Vaishnava Amagyan Chamyandasya Ganayasya Chakshara Militam Jena Tachma. Yeah, so let's speak a little. Pritchett Maharaj asked a question. He asks, you briefly told me, my spiritual master Sukadeva, you briefly told me about the structure of the planets that are situated in what's called the Virat Rupa. So this is explained in the third canto, and a little bit in the second canto, again in the 12th canto, how the planets are structured in relation to the Lord's body. So we have Brahmaloka at the top, and then we have the heavenly planets around the head. Then we have the luminaries like the sun and moon around the eyes and the chest of the Lord, around the chest. Then we have Mahitala, which is our earth, is on the waist or the hips of the Lord. Then we have Atala. As we go down a little towards the legs, we have Atala and so we have Atala and Vitala, that's the other one. Then we have Sutala on the knees, Bali Maharaj. And then we have the other planets, Mahitala, Rasatala, and then Patala on the feet of the Lord. So this is described in a little in the second, in the third on creation, and then again in the 12th. So if the Temple of Vedic Planetarium would like to make a temple to display the universal form of the Lord, they must do it how Sukadeva explains it. So you can't just say that the planets float in little globes and have something. You also have to put some presentation that explains everything correctly, how the Acharyas have explained it. Because ultimately, there is no material universe. I explain this very prominently in the first book that I wrote. Sorry, I have a problem with my knees, so I'm walking and put the knee pads on. So, yeah, we have to explain it exactly as Sukadeva presents it, and that's the correct way, because there's nothing that's not the Lord. So there is one sloka early on in Bhagavatam which says the entire material creation is illusionary, it's not real. But that sloka is misleading, it's not the truth. And there are many, many slokas throughout Bhagavatam that say that the world is real. So, a neophyte devotee, I'm not saying that yous or anything, will accept the world as being unreal because we hear that it's temporary. However, for the more advanced devotees, they hear that the entire world is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So how can it be unreal? The Lord spoke to Brahma and says, Brahma, everything, you know, the Chatusloki verses, everything that exists now is only I, and what existed in the past was also I, and what exists when the world is dissolved, it will still only be I, and what exists in the future is only I, the Supreme Lord. And there are many examples of gold. If you take gold and you fashion it into different jewelries or something, the underlying principle of everything is the gold itself. And the gold will be existing while the product is made, or when the product is dissolved and you no longer have jewelry, you still have gold. So that underlying principle is the Lord. And this is explained throughout Srimad Bhagavatam by the prayers of different demigods. To let those who not want to forget the Lord, shall we say, to let them realize that the Lord is there at every moment. That kind of vision, that personal vision, is called the supersoul realization. There's another one before that, which you will know, Brahman. So you'll have this Brahman conception that the scientists are looking at, where they think the whole world is made from atomic juxtaposition, so the atomic particles are joining together and forming different bodies, etc. But ultimately everything is some kind of form of energy, so that energy form is Brahman. So they're seeing the Lord as an impersonal energy creation that is, if you like, recreating over and over again. So that's the first forms of seeing the Lord. And that you can get from seeing the Lord in his universal form. And you can find the first two laws of thermodynamics, which are the only two unquestioned laws that science has got, and those will help you understand. The scientists are doing this, help them understand that everything in the world is perfect and no energy can be taken away from the world or brought into the world being the universe. Nothing can be destroyed, everything just changes shape. So everything that's in the universe, it just changes shape from one energy form to another. But in all times and all circumstances, that energy is always there, it stays the same. This is the first law of thermodynamics, that of conservation of energy. Then you have the second law of thermodynamics, which states that as the arrow of time marches forwards, everything degrades in the world. So as time is going forwards, our bodies are degrading because the law of entropy is going pushing backwards. So that law is a material law that says everything degrades over time. So these things are being found by the scientists, and they're looking for this Brahman realization. But the devotees who get a description of the Lord as the Virat Purusha, shall we say, the form of the Lord. Oh, that's nice. They see the Lord in his personal form. So, as devotees, you can understand that the entire purpose of Srimad Bhagavatam and the essence of our life and the reason why we speak, everything is to do with glorifying the Lord. There's no point in sitting up here to explain the universe unless it's connected to the Lord. So what the scientists are doing, they're wasting their time, really, and that's why it's called the atheistic version, the atheistic view of the universe, because they're trying to negate God in a lot of their understandings. But ultimately, Daksha in his Hamsa Guhya prayers, he says that ultimately the research of the scientists will bring them back to the conclusion that God is everywhere. So ultimately they'll also find the Lord, unless they want to be what's known as a Samyavadi. And those people want to completely negate everything. So they won't achieve any happiness in Brahman. You'll have the Brahmavadis who will achieve some pleasure in their form of nirvana. Then you'll have the Samyavadis and Mayavadis who won't get any happiness. Their happiness is in searching for the cessation of misery in the world. So we're always having some miserable situation, and when that ceases, they feel happiness. So they think if there's nothingness in the world, they'll feel happy. Just get rid of all desires. So there we have the three views, and they have to be presented in the TOBP. You have to present the Virat Purusha form of the Lord as Sukadeva presents it. Then Parikshit Maharaj inquired further. He said, so earlier on you spoke to me about the way the planets are situated in the universal form of the Lord. But what is their actual situation? So he's now understood that the universe is the Lord. It is the form of the Lord. But he wants to know what is their situation as we see it with our eyes, as we see the different planets. And from there begins a description of Bhumandala. So the teachings of Sukadeva, they don't begin with the planets that float in outer space. They begin on Bhumandala. And all of these places on Bhumandala, they've got people inhabiting them, and they're all got characteristics. So characteristics means they are this type of person, or this, or this, or this. So in the Vedic system, we have the Brahmins, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Sudra. And Sukadeva often mentions in the 5th canto that on Shalmali Dweep you'll have the, or shall we say on the Kusha Dweeps, I remember, the Kushalas. So they're like the Brahmins. And there'll be all the different 4 names, Brahman, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Sudra. And each time he mentions someone from one of the islands, he'll say, they are like the Brahmanas, Vaishyas, Sudras, etc. Kshatriyas. So he uses that term a few times, and you wonder, why is he saying that? He's mentioning that someone's like this. Well, the idea is that in our Earth planet, which has these 4 divisions in the Varnashram down, it's connected to the Supreme Personality of Godhead via Narad Muni's teachings. So in the other places, they're not connected to the Supreme Lord. So therefore they have a semblance. So in other words, you need a Kshatriya to rule people. You need a Brahmin to give advice and be teachers. You need a Sudra to do work. You need Vaishyas to do business enterprises. But in the Varnashram system, which finds its perfection here on this earth, we do those activities connected to the Lord. So we use the term Daivi Varnashram. And when they're not, then they're connected to something else. And that something else is a specific demigod. So for instance, in Lakshadweep, it's mentioned that the residents of Lakshadweep, they worship the sun god. So this sun god is not Surya Narayan. If it were, they could go back to Godhead at the end of their life. But it isn't. It's Vivasvan. Whoever is the presiding deity for the sun planet, they worship that demigod. So you know the sloka, Deva Deva Joyanti. Those who worship the demigods go to the demigods. Those who worship the ghosts and the spirits go to those places. But those who worship me will ultimately come to the Supreme Lord. Not me, but the Lord. So in the center of our Jambudweep island is a special place called Mount Meru. And on Mount Meru you find Shatikumbi, where Lord Brahma lives. And in that place, Lord Brahma is a representative of the Supreme Lord. So from this very island where we are, we can go back to Godhead. But on other islands, they can't do that. Actually, we worship Narayan Rishi, to be honest. So, on Pushkaradweep, they worship Brahma as Kama Mamitra. They worship Brahma not in his form of a monist, but in duality. So they want to go to Brahmaloka, they want to be Brahmavadis, and they get that as their result from Pushkaradweep. On, let's say on Lakshadweep, the residents worship the sun god. On Shalmali-dweep, they worship the moon god. And they want to go to the sun planet on Shalmali-dweep, or they want to go to the moon planet on Shalmali-dweep. So Lakshadweep is mentioned as having water that surrounds it, which is like nectar. So it's given as a sugarcane ocean. So there's some sweet taste there. And you'll know that on all of these islands that go out on Bhumanda, there are oceans surrounding them. I'm hoping everyone's at least, looked a little at the fifth canto, so that it's not all totally new to you. But they have, the 7 islands on Bhumandala have 7 oceans surrounding them. Each has a specific flavor. And devotees are a little at a loss to understand, well, why is it a saltwater ocean around Jambudweep? Why is it an ocean that tastes like sugarcane around Lakshadweep? Why is it an ocean that tastes like somaras, liquor, like alcohol, around Shalmali-dweep? So these words are aware that the sages use to describe something. So they want to get across the characteristics of the people in the universe. And we shouldn't forget when we're doing the Temple of Vedic Planetarium, to also include this, that there are people everywhere, and they have a certain flavor, they have a certain desire in life. But why that's so special is because on our earth, we're not supposed to have that same desire. This is a place where we can attain the highest goal. Whereas the other 8 earthly bhashas on Jambudweep, they're a place where you can have a heavenly feeling. So the other islands on Bhumandala, they're earthly, but they have a more opulent style of lifestyle than here. Here it's very simple in Kali Yuga, and it's the best opportunity we have to go all the way back to Godhead. So by describing these things, especially at this time, because of course the Bhagavatam was written down for Kali Yuga, and if you study the Narayan Kavacha, you'll find some of the verses in there that are specific for Kali Yuga. They're specific for protecting us during the Kali Yuga. So there's a lot in the Bhagavatam that is especially for us right now, right here. And when we study it correctly, our path can be so swift back to Godhead. But the other residents of Bhumandala, they don't desire that, so they don't get it. So it's mentioned the word, they are like the Brahmins, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, etc. for that reason, because they have a materialistic view of their advancement. When Priyavrata Maharaj was here, he was dividing the universe of Bhumandala into 7 islands, and he gave one section to each of his children, and the head child should be the most religious, the most advanced, and that was Idmajiva. So Idmajiva of this earth, he married Apsara from Brahmaloka, and he decided that when he was dying, he didn't want to go back to Godhead. He wanted to go and live with his wife. He wanted to go and live on the Pitrilokas. And this is very strange because every other one of Priyavrata Maharaj's children, they all went back to Godhead. Then, that's a little bit, Purvachiti was a name, that's a little special, but you'll find out why, because he's the greatest soul than you can imagine. Then we have his son, called Nabi Maharaj. Nabi Maharaj was given our earth. So our earth is very special, because Jambudvipa is the center of the universe, but Nabi Maharaj is the first. So the center of Jambudvipa is Ilavrata, but I think that was somewhere around the 3rd child of Nipa. But Nabi Maharaj, he was the first child, so he wasn't given the center of Ilavrata where Meru is. He was given our earth. And our earth is the bottom of Jambudvipa. It's a little bowl-shaped place, it said in the scriptures. So you wonder, why was he given this place when he is the emperor for the entire universe? Normally the first child, he's given the emperorship over everything, so he gets the center, and then everything feeds the center, and all the other children get places around him. So he was given our earth place to manage. So our earth is actually an island of Jambudvipa. In the 19th chapter I mentioned yesterday, it's called the island of Jambudvipa. So this little tiny island of 1,000 yojanas, the larger Jambudvipa is 100,000 yojanas. So we're tiny, tiny little place. And King Nabi was given this place to rule. And the reason is because this is the actual center of the universe, not Jambudvipa, not Meru. Although Meru is the center, Meru is in the center of everywhere, but it's actually here. And that's why Lord Brahma put the pin at Namasharanya, right here. Because our earth keeps time for the whole universe. It's not a normal place. That's why the demons want to come here and take it over. They want to destroy religion. That's the whole kick in life, you know? Everybody's got to have something they want to do in life, and they want, like Hiranyakashipu, they want to take this earth. And right now they're doing a very good job. So when you see demoniac governments are taking over and they're oppressing the people, they have an aim at their agenda at the very root is to destroy religion. So the only thing that can stop that in Kali Yuga is this very Sankirtan movement. Not because of us. we're quite pathetic, to be honest. Our devotees haven't done much in the world at all. It's only because it's Lord Chaitanya's movement. That's all. It's the only reason. It's Lord Chaitanya's Sankirtan movement, and it will destroy the demons. And if we don't act as the Lord's answers, his angers and upangas, we're his anger, his upangas, then we're not going to turn this Kali-yuga into Satya-yuga. So part of doing that will be to explain the whole structure of the universe and to defeat the scientific presentation. Now, it's unfortunate out of so many devotees we have, there's only a handful of you here. However, what that means is you guys are special. And you can take that further. You can take it further and research further and realize, because at the end of the entire universe, I'll describe to you, there is a most amazing prize at the end of the universe. And that prize, when you are demigod like Indra or Chandra or Vayu, etc., you have to wait a long time to get that prize, because they're taking the Pitriyana path. So that Pitriyana, no, they're taking the Devayana and Pitriyana. They're taking both. So the Devas, they're in the north of Pushkardri, and the Pitri are in the south. So this is the path where they go through all the different islands, and then they go through the different levels of the universe going up, what we call the planets in outer space. But we have a different path given by Narad Muni and his disciple Vyasadeva. He gave us Srimad Bhagavatam. So that's the path of Nivritti. And that's because we're in the center, we're allowed to have that path. We are the closest imaginable to Lord Krishna's pastimes. And to be able to perform Daivi Varnashram, or to be able to perform pure bhakti, we have those opportunities here, whereas all the residents of all the other places don't have that. They literally don't have it, I'll guarantee you. The demigods in the other parts of Jambudvi, they come down from Brahmaloka, and they have to descend to earth when their pious credits are gone. But Prabhupada explains, before they come right here, they have a stop-off point, which is like heavenly environment for them. They live for 10,000 years. So, before they come here, they're enjoying, but they curse themselves in the Bhagavatam. They say, what are we doing here, living off all of our good piety, trying to enjoy, when all we want is to be engaged in the Lord's Sankirtan movement? Lord Chaitanya is there on earth. And all of these earthlings are so fortunate that they're engaging in this devotional service of the Lord, and we're not fortunate. So imagine you're all wearing dhotis and saris, and you're all part of the Lord's movement, and these demigods are cursing themselves, saying how unfortunate we are because we've missed the opportunity. So I'll say one sad thing to you, and that is, don't miss this opportunity yourself, because there's a queue. And when you have this human form of life, and you don't use it correctly, or you don't try to attain perfection in life, but instead you go back to your materialistic life, and you have a little spice of Krishna in there, a little spice of chanting, what happens is you perform Mishra Bhakti. And by that Bhakti in the mixed category, you'll go to heaven. So that's sad, because you're going to miss the queue. You miss your opportunity here. But Lord Krishna, he mentions about this in the 11th canto to Uddhava, because Uddhava's a little worried about this. And Uddhava asks a certain question, And Lord Krishna says, well, Arjuna asked a similar question to me. And he said that Arjuna asks, what happens to those who following the path, but they fall away after a while? Do they disappear like a riven cloud, just drift off in the distance? And Krishna helps Arjuna out in that regard. And he says, my devotees never perish. They may lose their situation for a while, but they're born again into a family of devotees or aristocracy, or depending on where they left off in the previous life. And also this is the way that the fifth canto is presented. Parikshit Maharaj asks the question, how is it that Priyavrata Maharaj is a family man who's lost in the world of family relationships? And he actually says he was besotted. It's mentioned this word. He was completely, his eyes were only seeing his wife, you know, completely besotted by his wife's feminine charms. So, you know, the charms of a lady are that they're very, what's the right word? Shy and polite and educated, and they don't overstep the mark, etc. And the husband really appreciates that. When you've got a good husband that understands the truth about nature, he treats his wife well. So Priyavrata always wanted to treat his wife very well. And Parikshit Maharaj asked the question, how is it possible for him to be such a great soul? How is it imaginable that he went back to Godhead when he was besotted by a woman? Indra was the same. So what happened with Indra, I'll just mention quickly, he took Lord Krishna as being his younger brother. Lord Krishna was asked by Satyabhama, his wife, to take a flower, and Lord Krishna said, a flower, I'll take the whole tree, you know, no problems. And Indra thought, this tree is a heavenly tree, it shouldn't go to earth, it doesn't belong there. And anyway, this is Vishnu, he's my younger brother. He should show respect to me, Indra thought. So, you know the pastime when Vamanadev come, and Indra's mother prayed for an incarnation. So Vamanadev was a younger brother of Indra at that time. So Indra was told by his wife, don't get it back, that's our tree, you know. So he tried to get it back at that time. I mean, Krishna also likes this fun, you know, he likes to have a bit of fun to show off. He took his wife there to heaven for that reason, I imagine. Because Satyabhama is very, very special in Lord Krishna's pastimes. So anyway, the same question was asked, and do the devotees fall away? And Lord Krishna mentions to Uddhava that the devotees, they have to remember the Lord in their heart. And Sukadeva gives the same answer. He says, a devotee may have his advancement checked for some time, but ultimately he never forgets me. Those are the three the same teaching. And when you never forget the Lord, you have until the end of your life to remember the Lord. That's the final test when you're a devotee. Do you remember the Lord at the time of your death? You know? And you can do that easier if your life is spent for the glorification of the Lord. So all these things are there, and we shouldn't forget them because they help our advancement. They're all in the fifth canto. The fifth canto is not just about planets floating in the sky. That's a tiny little part of it. Really, all the presentations are there to show us. So what happened with Priyavrata Maharaj was he was meditating on Mathura mountain, and he got to a level of bhava, a very high level in his practices. And when his father said to him, please, can you take over the universe because Daksha is gone? Daksha's off to meditate. You know, the Prachetas had Daksha as their son. And Daksha was the son of Brahma. He knew who he was from birth. In fact, the Lord helped him to understand this better. So he went off to meditate, and there was some trouble in the universe, and so Swami Booth went to Priyavrata and said, please come and rule the universe. And Priyavrata said, well, that will disturb my Krishna consciousness. So then Lord Brahma came along and said, no, Lord Shiva, Narad Muni, myself, your father, all of us must carry out the order of the Lord. And this order has been ordained for you to rule the universe, not to be a renunciant. It's a shock, eh? He ordered him to get married. The Lord has ordered you to get married because you have to propagate this universe. You have to put the right children in the universe. So when Parikshit Maharaj, Priyavrata Maharaj met his wife, he was so, he was brahmachari, you know, he didn't see a woman in his life. And all of a sudden he got married, and there's this beautiful lady who's so impeccable in her character, and he was taken back by it. He was completely besotted by it. So Prabhupada explains that when he had his first child, Agnidradev, he was in material consciousness. He was a materialist at that time. He had a lot of duties to rule the universe. And so Agnidradev, he said, also was in this material consciousness. However, let's put it in its correct perspective. You may be in your consciousness of going back to Godhead. You may think that's good. But what about the person who says, no, I'm going to stay here and help people for eternity. I'm going to stay here till the end of Brahma's closing, and all I'm going to do is assist people. That's a nice person. That's a saintly person. So that's what Agnidradev did. So instead, what did he think? He thought, I'm so fallen, I'm such a materialist, you know, I've fallen in love with Pavachiti, and now I want to go to be with her. So let me right my wrongs. Let me have a perfect child. So then Nabi Maharaj was born. Now Agnidradev was such a powerful person. Don't ever think bad of this person. Don't ever think bad of any of these big people. Once I heard a lecture by a sannyasi, and I wasn't happy. I went to him in his room and said, why are you saying that? You know, how we devotees are on higher level than Lord Brahma and the demigods and stuff. I said, who are we? We're nothing, you know. Even Narad Muni, who's on such a level, he'll bow down to his father. You know, no problems. He'll bow down to everyone. So these people are great souls. Even the horrible ones like King Vena, somehow through their hatred, there's three ways you can achieve the Lord: through anger, through hatred, and through love. So through their hatred, they still achieved the Lord, although it wasn't favorable. But they come back and they get another chance. So Agnidradev, it's mentioned by Prabhupada that Priyavrata created a second son. Agnidradev did the same. He created another son. So he divided Jambudvip into 9 vashas, 9 parts. And those 9 parts he gave one to each son. In the middle is a square, and that's Ilavrata Vasha. And then you have 2 either side of that square, and then you have 3 towards the top. And those divisions end in Kimpurusha Vasha. No, sorry, Uttara Kuru Vasha. Mother Earth is at the top there. So then when you come down the bottom, and what's dividing them is mountains, and then there's 3 divisions in the bottom, so you have a circle, and there's 3 divisions at the bottom. And that very bottom division is where Bharatvarsha is. So the very bottom of a circle like that. And then the very bottom of the bottom is our little Earth. And that's an island. So that was given its own what do you call it, atmosphere. So you may hear some of the flat earth people say there's a dome above earth. So there is some kind of atmosphere that allows us to be a self-contained unit here on earth. And Agnidra prayed for a pure son, and that son came out as Lord Nabi. And Nabi Maharaj was so pure himself that he didn't think himself pure either. He was so humble. His father was so humble. So imagine these people are rulers of the universe. They're not rulers of this tiny earth. They were the central rulers for the entire cosmos. You know, everything you can imagine was there. And they were so humble that they thought, I'm not qualified. I'm not a perfect person. I'm nothing. So Nabi Maharaj prayed for a son. And he didn't think himself capable of having a son. So he went to the Brahmanas and he said, you ask on behalf of me. And he asked the Brahmanas, and they did all their yagyas, and they offered prose to the Lord. Normally the Lord's, it mentions in the Bhagavatam, normally the Lord's worshipped in prayers. But this time they sang prose. So they sang some kind of different meters that had different hints about the Lord in them. They were educated people, and they wanted to approach the Lord in their unique way, and they wanted to catch the Lord's attention. Yeah? So they said that Nabi Maharaj is he's a little unfortunate that he's asking the Lord. The Lord's come before him, and he can ask for anything in the whole world. He can ask for liberation. He can ask for all the money back. By the way, he's already the emperor, so I don't think he would want that. But what did he ask for? A child, that's all. That's all he asked for. Like his father, that's all he asked for. Priyavrata, that was all he asked for. Nice children to rule the universe. Do you get the whole point of it? And this was the decline. So in other words, Priyavrata was ordained, but he wasn't a family man at all. And in the end, he just cast off his wife. He said, look at me, I'm like a dancing monkey in the hands of my wife. He said, I'll give this up. And like, just give it up and attend perfection. Went to the forest. First he arranged that his children were rulers of the 7 islands. So then Nabi Maharaj asked for a child, and the Lord came to the sacrifice. Vishnu came and said, there isn't anyone else like me, so I'll have to take birth as your child. He wanted a child as good as God. There's no one else as good as God, he said, so I'll have to come. So this was Lord Rishabdev. Very wonderful teachings by Lord Rishabdev when he was leaving, that said to his children, he had 100 children, and Bharat Maharaj was the eldest. Then he had the 9 Yogendras who were perfect. They're just like the 4 Kumaras who were absolutely perfect in every detail. And then he had 81, so that's, there's 9, that's 91. Then he had Kshatriyas and then Brahmins. 10 Kshatriyas, and was it? Yeah. And then 81 Brahmins. So he knew what he was doing, Lord Rishabdev. Everyone was perfect who he gave birth to. And the Lord came to teach humans the path of Varnashram Dharma. So that's where it all comes from. Our Varnashram Dharma comes from Lord Rishabdev. So if he said to his sons, he said, if you worship Bharat Maharaj, my eldest son, then I'll consider that worship of me. So in other words, if you take your position in the Varnashram system, and you serve the center, who is Bharat Maharaj, I'll consider that worship as me, so it's perfect. But he said, don't be like the hogs and dogs that eat stew. Don't be a common fellow. Be a devotee. Of all things in the 12th canto, chapter of Bhagavad Gita, it's mentioned, of all things be a devotee, and of all yogis be a devotee, and all things the best of all yogis is the bhakti yogi. So these are some preliminaries. I'm speaking just off the top of my head to give you an idea before we discuss the universe, because the universe isn't to be discussed just in terms of islands or planets or something. That would be negating God, which is basically what the scientists want to do. What is the structure of the universe without God? Well, who cares? You know? Who cares what it is? So as we have Jambudvip that's divided into 9 divisions, we also have the island of Jambudvip, which is our Earth. And that's divided also into, how many would you say is around? There's the different continents around. And it's mentioned that there are 8 small, there's a sloka in Radhacharan important, 8 smaller islands surround Bharatvarsha. So then you may have 9. If Bharatvarsha was a continent, then you may have 9 others, 9 in total. So that would mean Bharatvarsha was divided into 9 and Jambudvip was divided into 9. But on our Earth at the moment, they don't say that was 9. I think they say there's 7 or something. But remember, at one point there was only 3. There was Lemuria, Mu, and Atlantis. So Lemuria, that was a place that was supposed to be around New Zealand. And the modern geologists, they say that New Zealand is 98% underwater. So that's where Lemuria was supposed to be in the old days. And then you have the island of Mu, which was the whole of Asia, the whole of China and India and whoever else, maybe the Asia and all the rest. And maybe even Europe was some small part of that. But definitely Asia was in there. And the Greeks and different ones. Then you have Atlantis, which is somewhere in the Atlantic Ocean. So that was over towards the Americas. That was Atlantis over there. So who knows what the Earth was like previously in Lord Krishna's time. I spoke yesterday about a big flood that was here. And it's mentioned that one of the sons of Priyavrata Maharaj, he left Earth and went to another place because there was going to be a flood. It's mentioned in the Bhagavatam in a small section. I quote it in my book. So then, if we have Jambudvip as 9 islands, and we have our island of Jambudvip as a further 9 islands, then you see there must be 2 different suns. Because how are you going to get one people living for 100 years and one living for 10,000 years? If the sun is in outer space and it's illuminating our Earth because it's spinning round, how is it illuminating Jambudvip? Jambudvip would be so big that we couldn't miss it. It would be huge. Then outside of Jambudvip, in chapter 20, that discusses the structure of the universe. So four chapters are about Jambudvip, our island, and then only 1 chapter is about the whole of the rest of the universe. So you can see by that Vyasadeva didn't really care about the rest of the universe. He cared about describing the Lord. So this is the most special place here. And he spent a lot of time on this. He spent an entire canto just on our little island, Bharatvarsha. So in relation to the structure of the universe, chapter 20, let's discuss it a little bit. Outside of outside of Jambudvip is Plakshadvip. The residents there live for 1,000 years. They are beautiful like the demigods, and they give birth like the demigods. So that is the entire description of Plakshadvip given in the Bhagavad Gita. Oh, there's one more. It's surrounded by an ocean of, what do we call it, the honeycomb ocean. The one that's sugarcane ocean. and they want to go to the sun planet as their destination. So Vyasadeva didn't really care much to describe it. He just said that it's a heavenly kind of environment, and it's surrounded by a certain ocean. That ocean is locking the people into a certain thought form. So Jambudvip Ocean, the salt ocean, is a kind of a salty taste, not so nice in your mouth. So the place itself is surrounding us, it's not so tasty and nice. So earth can be a good place if you perform sacrifice, or otherwise it's not so good. But in Lakshadweep, it's very good for life. Even though it's earthly, they look after the people. They look after their cities, they look after their towns and villages, they have nice governments, they don't fight, everything's correct as it should be. Well, there's always some kind of rivalry, even in heaven there's rivalry, but at least they're better than us. Then the mention of the sun planet is important. So as you have the islands of Bhumandala going across, and they're mentioned as circular islands that are each double the size of the previous. So if Jambudvip is 100,000 in the middle, then the next island, Lakshadweep, is 200,000. And then when you double that, the next island is 400,000. So the island is increasing, and the people are living for 10 times longer. So 100 years here, 1,000 years there. So as their lifespan increases, the sun must be going around a bigger island, and therefore it's going slower for them. Therefore, the potency of their trees and their plants, vegetables, everything is increasing. So their size increases. So just as we are 6 feet tall, they're 12 feet tall. Also in the different yugas, in Dwapara Yuga, people were 12 feet tall and they lived for 1,000 years. In Treta Yuga, they were 24 feet tall and they lived for 10,000 years. In Satya Yuga, they were 50 feet tall and they lived for 100,000 years in Satya Yuga. So just as the space increases and the sun goes around at a different rate slowly, then the potency of everything increases and the people increase. When you hear about anthropology speaking about the dinosaurs and how they're so big, and then there's these little Neanderthal men, which would be like tiny little dwarves, this is not true at all. Everyone was big in the past. So just as you may have a dinosaur and we have an elephant, well, ratio, it will be similar thing. It's not that there was one thing huge and the rest were tiny. Everything's ratio the same. It's mentioned when, what was his name? Kukutmi? No, not Kukutmi. Another one. He went to sleep. A king, anyway, was fighting on behalf of the demigods. He's a human from our earth. And he was fighting the asuras for the demigods. And they asked him, what do you want as a benediction? He said, oh, just let me go to sleep. So he went to sleep. And then when Lord Krishna was chasing Kaliyavana, he went into a cave, and this king was there fast asleep, and Kaliyavana kicked him. And when he woke up, Kaliyavana burnt to ashes because of his own sins. So when this king went outside, he looked around, he said, wow, everything's tiny, you know. He was shocked how Satya Yuga had vanished. He was so big, and everything was tiny little trees, tiny everything. So those things are happening on different islands. People are bigger. So when people want to go to the sun planet from Lakshadweep, according to my analysis, I don't know anyone else who has got this far yet, but I state that the sun planet is the circle where people want to go up to. So that's the top of one of the circles. There are 7 circles. In the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, the Shivishvara was fighting with the Vishnuvishvara. That was fighting on Banasura's behalf. And the Shivishvara was getting destroyed, and he offered prayers to the Vishnuvishvara. And he mentioned in those prayers that there are 7 planets. So there are only 7 planets in the universe. Not like science says, all these millions of planets. They say there's trillions and trillions of galaxies, trillions of galaxies, trillions of planets in every galaxy. However, Lord Shiva says there's 7 of them. So we have 7 days of the week for a reason. The number 7 is a special number in Bhagavatam because it's connected to the number of equality. So 7, if you have a piece of paper and it's called the 7-color map of geometry, and you put 7 colors on that paper, you can get every color to touch the next color. But you can't do that with any other number whatsoever. So the number 7 is so correct because you can have even amounts everywhere. And what that number 7 does, it allows you to form a toroidal shape, toroid. So you have a vortex with energy going in the top and coming out the bottom, and that's only possible with the number 7. So you have 7 coming up in the Bhagavatam everywhere. You'll find that there are 7 upper planets and 7 lower planets. There are 7 islands. When Lord Shiva was chopping, Lord Indra was chopping the womb, Aditya, the baby in the womb, he chopped the baby into 7 parts, and then he chopped that into 7 parts again, and then there were 49 fire gods made. So that 7 is there all the time throughout Bhagavatam. Once I wrote down all the times it is, and I thought, well, my book's getting too big, so I took it out and just put a hint there. But it's there in the Bhagavatam everywhere. Because the whole universe is actually nothing but a torus, which means a self-sustaining shape. It can look after itself. It doesn't need anything. It doesn't need any outside help. It has energy like a magnet flowing in from the bottom and out of the top. So the first planet in the universe is called Jambu. And Janmastami, etc. This Jambu is where it took its birth. The first Earth took its birth in Jambu. So that's the first one, and it reaches up to Mount Meru. The second planet in the universe reaches up to the Sun planet, and that's Plakshadweep on the Bhumangala aspect. Now, for a circle to occur, you don't only have to have the top, you also have to have the bottom. So if the top of Jambudweep reaches to Mount Meru, the bottom of Jambudweep is actually Atala Loka. So you hear there are seven lower planets, Atala, Vitala, Sutala, Mahatala, Rasatala, Patala, these kind of things, yeah? So our Earth of Jambu, our Jambudweep, is connected to Atala Loka. And the demon who rules that is called Bala Danava. He's the son of Maya Danava. And some people think, they worship him, people worship him as Moloch. And Moloch likes child sacrifices. So he likes to drink blood. Most of the demons like blood. So there's a lot of child sacrifices going on our earth at the moment. There's a lot of people being sacrificed to Moloch. Bala is Mayadava's son. And the reason is because Earth is an island like a ship. And when that ship has some air taken out of it, it sinks in the sea. So similarly, when people perform nefarious activities on our Earth, the Earth actually sinks. Bali Maharaj in his prayers, in his talks, not his prayers, in his talks, he said, I can do anything, but I can never be a liar. He said to Sukaracharya. And he said that, he quoted Mother Earth. Mother Earth said, I can bear any heavy weight except that of a liar. She can't bear untruthfulness. So that has a special meaning to it. And when you study Bhagavatam according to the 4 forms of Shabda that I mentioned yesterday, you can have an insight into these things. You can go in details, small tiny details. And the Lord, the Antaryami in the heart, He'll help you understand these things. So, if you take the first law of thermodynamics, you find that it's a law of heat exchange in the universe, the law of entropy. So when you put heat inside something that's a gaseous thing, it'll float higher. So you have these hot air balloons, and when they put fire in it, it goes up. And when they let the fire out, whatever they do, it goes down. So they steer it like that. So the planets that float in the sky, Prabhupada said it's from manipulations of air. So the scientists say it's all to do with gravity and different things, but it's not. It's heat exchange. So they float according to thermodynamics. Thermo meaning heat, and dynamics means the interaction. Then when you come to the water level, that turns into what's called fluid dynamics. So you might have heard the term buoyancy. So fluid dynamics deals with air. And when you want to, say there's a ship that's sunk at the bottom of the ocean, when you want to resurrect that ship to the top, you pump air into it, or people do, not me. So they pump air into it and they lift it up. And when the Lord killed Hiranyaksha, it said that he installed his potency in Mother Earth to allow her to float. So what he did, he breathed the air of life. You know, you do this mouth-to-mouth resuscitation. He literally breathed air into her. He gave her some oxygen. And he said, now float, no problem. That's all the earth is. Mother Earth says herself, I'm like a ship, and I carry everything. So the earth we live on is just an island. It's just a ship that's floating. When the earth is in its normal trajectory, you may say, when it's floating at the right level, we come under the rule of the demigods, because we're part of Meru, like I said, and the demigods, they have, on Pushkara, they have their holiday resorts on Meru, so it's connected to our earth. However, when nefarious activities are performed on earth, then the wind is literally knocked out of the earth. You know when you get the wind knocked out of you, the earth then sinks slightly in the sea of space-time, or the sea of the ocean, if you like. And what happens then? You have if you have a circle and you have an imaginary line in the middle called the equator, so you're dividing the circle into 2 halves, top and the bottom. The top half belongs to demigods, the bottom half belongs to demons. So as soon as we sink just a millimeter beneath where the demigods are in charge, then we're commanded by Atamaloka. And that's Kali Yuga. And that's why our governments are polluted and corrupted, because they're worshipping. And they're saying, give us more power, give us more technology. Allow us to pollute the earth more. Allow us to remove religion from the earth. Destroy those deists. Hiranyakashipu said, go down to that earth and chop from the root all the trees in the hermitages. Kill all the Brahmins. Stop everyone doing sacrifices. Destroy religion. This is the whole point. So this is going on beneath your very eyes, and nobody's doing a damn thing about it. We have to. We have to. We have to start doing something about it. Lord Chaitanya came first before the demons, and he gave his Sankirtan movement, and that Sankirtan movement is that we're together. Not together as regards together, and then I'll take your prasadam. No, no. Together we serve each other and we serve Krishna. That's the demigod way. That's going up. And as long as we spread that, then Earth's going to rise. But the minute COVID comes in, and COVID says, everybody, I was in Mauritius and they had stickers all over the floor in the temple room. It says, keep your social distance. So we're social creatures, right? We interact socially. Yeah? So what would happen if we distance ourselves? We become antisocial. It's saying, please, in the temple room, please, be antisocial. You devotees, don't be social. Don't talk to each other. I know you've got a nice quote. It says, please, in Denmark we call it a mundbean, which means a gag, a mouth gag. So those who are in charge, they invent these things and say, don't talk to each other, don't spread the Sankirtan movement of Lord Chaitanya, don't trust each other, don't go out, a little tiny flu virus is going to kill you. And everyone's scared. They just say it and that's it, everyone obeys. They don't consider for one moment that there's a plan there, you know. There's a plan to make Earth sink even more and come under the sway of Atula Loka. Plakshadweep doesn't do this. Plakshadweep's got Vitala underneath, but Plakshadweep never comes under the sway of that. It's only our Earth, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. He says, only Earth undergoes the 4 yuga seasons. Nowhere else, just here. And because of that, the demigods that are keeping time, they keep time according to the Chatur Yugas. The 4 yugas here on Earth makes their time. So you have this number that I mentioned, 432 number. So the Chatur Yuga is 432 million years. And then you multiply that by 71 sets, 71 lives, 71 years, sorry, for their life. So then you get the exact number of days. Everybody lives for the same number of days everywhere in the universe. No one is any different. Everyone lives for, you know, Brahma's life, 311 trillion, 40 billion. Well, you have that many breaths. Some have that many minutes, some have that many hours, some have that many days, some have that many years. Everyone has the same. Because everything in the universe is the same thing. You've got 60 seconds multiplied by 60 minutes, multiplied by 24 hours, and multiplied by 360 days, the 12 and the 24, it's always there. So everything, and then multiplied by 100 years, and there's no difference. You multiply it all up, you get the same number, 311040. It's always the same number. There's never any difference. The universe is perfect as it is, and it's perfect because all of the islands are perfectly symmetrical, going out, each one twice as big as the other. Each one has its own sun, moon, and star system that goes around. And proportionately, nobody lives a minute longer than the other person. So, for example, you live 100 years, they live 100 years, full stop. Comparatively, it's different. And by the way, Lord Brahma doesn't live for 311 trillion, 40 billion years. It's impossible. Because Kali Yuga doesn't exist all the time. Right? If Kali Yuga existed, okay. But in Satya Yuga, if they were to compare their life with Lord Brahma, then you'd have to take some zeros off, because they don't live for 100 years, they live for 100,000 years. So you'd have to take 3 zeros off that. So 311 trillion will go down to billion, 311 billion. You see? But it's relative to wherever you are. So Plakshadweep is the next island out, and the residents want to go to Sun Planet. So you have then the second circle in the universe, the second planet. Then the next island out from there is Shalmalidweep. Sorry, maybe I should have read from the Bhagavatam or something. But it's there in the body, so it's okay. I'm not telling you any lies, it's as it is. On Shalmalidweep, the residents worship the moon planet. They worship Chandradev. they worship, it said, the demigod of the moon by offering grains or whatever. And the prayers in Lakshadweep, they offer prayers to the sun god, and they offer different things. And they want to go to the moon god in Shalmali-Dweep, moon planet. Prabhupada mentions that when we go to the moon, this is a very good thing you can say to scientists, right? Okay. When they go to the moon, Prabhupada said people live for 10,000 years, right? 10,000 years of demigod's time. When you do the multiplication, you find out how many Earth years that is. Something like 306 million years, right? Just under a Divi Yuga. So if we are good people and we die when the moon's in the northern hemisphere, when it's a bright moon, etc., an auspicious time to leave your body, and we're performing Mishra Bhakti. Oh, that was something I forgot, I'll tell you quickly. Lord Krishna told Uddhava, I forgot to finish the statement, that those who worship demigods go to the demigods, and those who worship the gods go there. However, those who worship me go to me. And he said that a person who performs Mishra Bhakti will get the rewards, but if he doesn't want to go to them, if he doesn't want to go to the moon, if he doesn't want to go to heaven, then he doesn't have to. It's very important to remember that. Always pray. Dear Lord, I'm sorry I'm not perfect. I'm sorry my chanting is whatever, my mind, my sinful activities, anything you want to say, but please don't let me go to heaven, all right? Just let's fix that before we go anywhere. I apologize, but don't let me go there. Let me be reborn on earth so I can try again. Because I don't want to go in that queue. And when I come back in the queue after 306 million years, Sankirtan movement's gone. And I'm stuck back in Kali Yuga because of my sinful desires to enjoy, and the Lord's gone. Lord Chaitanya's gone. And I can't even hear about him anymore. So, you've been given some good advice there, right? Take it, pray to the Lord, say, don't take me there. Yeah. So that's that one. So the residents of Shalmali-Dweep, they want to go to the moon. They desire to go to the moon. And that's why Vyasadev's teachings are special. That's why Narada Muni's our boss, by the way, here. He's in charge of our place. And he teaches Vyasadeva. And he says to Vyasadeva, you're not satisfied in the beginning of the Bhagavad Gita. You're not satisfied because you haven't properly described the Lord's glories. Because you haven't told them Srimad Bhagavatam yet. You haven't written your own commentary yet. Do that and then you'll be happy. You haven't finished your work. You're only partly finished. So because Vyasadeva gives us this instruction, we're not like these other islands. We don't have to go to the moon or the sun. We don't need to. What to speak of Prabhupada, how amazing Prabhupada is. He only taught Bhakti. That's all he taught. You know? Maybe some of our sannyasis say, go and get a job or fit in or this or that, but the big guys don't say that. Bharat Maharaj's teachings are so against that, it's unbelievable, and so are Narada Muni's teachings. They said, no, become pure devotees. Earn what you need to live, that's okay, but focus on Krishna and become pure devotee. So then, again, I was just saying that because our teachings are so good here. None of the others have Vyasadev's teachings. That's because they're foolish. So they had a desire, they want to go to the moon planet. So then 306 million years on the moon planet, divide that by 100 years of your life, or whatever, on Earth. Divide that by, the different times, 360 and 24. Find out how much time passes in the moon in one day. If you went to the moon planet for one day, 100 years would pass on this earth. Now you tell me, the Apollo moon landing, did they stay for a day? If they did, NASA's no longer here when they come back. It's a bluff. It's a complete bluff. If they stayed for one day, 100 years would go by. And that's not calculating the time it took to get there. So those guys haven't been to no moon. Not possible. Almost 1,000 years if they stayed a little over a week. There would be nothing left of anything. If they were there for just a week, getting there, staying a little bit of time, taking some rocks as samples so they could sell them on eBay, come back, a week's gone by, and 1,000 years. Like King Kukudmi when he came back in 28 Chaturayugas it passed when he went to Brahmaloka. So you can tell them, you're lying. There's no such thing as going to the moon and time not passing. So then outside of Shalmali Dweep, and they have an ocean that tastes like liquor surrounding them. So that liquor ocean is a code to say that they want to enjoy, but in a little more, it's a little more demoniac, shall we say. Like drinking liquor is a little more demoniac than drinking summer, the other ras, I keep forgetting that word, where you make that drink, that drink, that sweet drink, sugarcane drink. So the sun planet has a sugarcane ocean, so they have one type of desire there. Shalmali has called a liquor ocean. And so you can see by that, there's something a little more sinister in there. And according to my calculations, no one ever sees the moon in this universe. Because the moon, Brahma doesn't see the moon. Brahma only sees daylight, 12 hours. When the moon comes, the universe is destroyed. So the moon is not here. It's out in the water sphere where the demons live. So the universe is a circle, but the earth is flat. So when you want to portray the whole of Bhumandala and the whole universe in a sky, you portray it as an inside and an outside. And it's above you. They call it the celestial sphere of all the different planets. So the planets in the lower regions, they're portrayed as being the outside, like Pluto, etc., Uranus. So the moon is out there, and that's actually the water sphere. So the moon is in the lower planets. That's why they have this samaras. That's why they have this desire to enjoy. That's a little bit, those who drink alcohol, they've got a slight little twist in them. And you remember the moon god son, Buddha, he stole Brihaspati's wife, Tara. So he stole her wife. She was a student. They were both students here. He stole her, and he had sex with her, and he had a child with her. So you can see they're a little like enjoying how they want to enjoy. They're Kshatriyas, and they're definitely also good people, but they have a little twist in them. There are demigods in the lower planets, by the way. They're Gandharvas and other planet demigods. The Urugas, the serpentine snakes, they're demigods, same thing. We hear of Takshaka, who bit Parikshit Maharaj. He's a demigod. So he used to go to Indra's place all the time. They'd have lunch together and have meals, etc. They were good friends. So those beings that you see as serpentine snakes, they're very highly elevated, cultured people. When we hear the prayers of Kaliya's wives, they knew everything. I mean, they were really up there like the gopis. The speeches that come out of Kaliya's wives are phenomenal. So they know about God, they know about everything, they know they're taught in school, they're very cultured people. But they have this desire to enjoy. And a lot of them take the demigod Vishnu as being the Lord Vishnu. There's a demigod also who's called Vishnu, and they take that as being Vishnu. And people like Hiranyakashipu, they think Vishnu is like Brahma or someone, like a demigod, and they can be even higher, they can defeat him. That's what they're told in school, so we always believe what we're told. And the globe model is a good example of that. The whole of the scientific community is so intelligent, and they all believe in it, Just like everyone in the demoniac kingdoms believes that they can win Vishnu. We're fortunate to have Prabhupada who told us something else from the start. Prabhupada was so kind to us all. So then, the moon planet is the result for those on Shalmali Dweep. On Kushadweep, the next island out, it said there are lumps of kusha grass, and they have little flames on them. So kusha grass is used to meditate. The different sages use kusha grass. And kusha grass has a special ability. Science has found that it blocks out 60% of radiation. So kusha grass, if you sit on it, it'll stop you from absorbing some radiation or some bad vibes, shall we say, from some place. And it'll also stop your energy from flowing out. So there's negatives and positives everywhere, all over your body, all over different things. So kusha grass is good for meditating. So the sages, they meditate on kusha grass. And Kushadweep, the resident is surrounded, Kushadweep, let's get the thing first, it's surrounded by a ghee ocean. So the first two oceans, they're a little bit of an enjoying nature. Ours is not enjoying, ours is salty. Yeah, it's not good for enjoying. But the next ocean, the next three oceans, are made from milk products. So milk products come from the cow, that's very religious, it's very good for performing yagas, etc. So you see, I'm describing the universe to you, but it has nothing to do with how the scientists describe it, but it has everything to do with how Bhagavatam describes it. So we should take note of how Bhagavatam describes it, and then we should speak, and then our speaking is chest. Then. So on Kushadweep, the residents, they perform offerings with ghee into the fire, and they say, please accept this, dear fire, please accept this offering of ghee, and please take me to the fire planet. So they also don't want to go back to Godhead. They want to go to the fire planet. So that is the planet of the sages. We may know that as Siddhaloka, where the beings have, the body, Prabhupada said that people on the moon will have almost etheric bodies. We almost can't see them. But the next beings, you won't see them. So that's sages of Mahaloka. So Mahaloka, and it also has a downward part of Sutala, where Bali Maharaj lives. That's why Bali Maharaj is not the normal demon. He's a saint, you see. So he's living in this circle of reality. So this leads, it goes up to Dhruvaloka, this area. So Mahaloka, the beings lived yesterday, we mentioned, for 4,300,000 years. 4,300,000,000 years. So they live for the day of the Kalpa of Brahma. So the beings on the next island out, Shamali, Kushadweep, they want to go to Mahaloka as their destination. So this is called Pravritti Marg, going through the universe via performing yajna, and we're doing the same. We're doing the Sankirtan yajna, but we're following Nivritti Marg. So if any of you out there are focusing on material life, Bhagavatam's teaching you something else, a Nivritti Marg. Have money, no problem, keep your life, but also try and lose attachments for material nature. And attachments for Krishna, you have to gain that via what's called austerity and sacrifice. There are 9 processes to get to know the Lord, of worshiping the Lord. Shravan, Kirtanam, Vishnu, Smaranam, Archanam, Bhagavan, Sakram, Dasam, Atman, So these things are there for us to do at all times, and then you can get attachment to the Lord. So this is the planet of Kushadweep. I'll go a little faster because our time's nearly up, and I'm only just speaking what's off the top of my head. There's so much more to speak. Outside of Kushadweep is Kranchadweep, which is the next island out. And each of these islands, they're expanding. So you have the middle 100,000, then 200,000, and 400,000. And each island has also got an ocean of the same width. So it's like 800,000 yojanas in between each island. However, there's no mention of outer space. So you don't need a rocket to go anywhere in the universe. Just get an aeroplane and that's enough. It's mentioned in Bhagavatam that the demigods were sitting in the aeroplanes watching down. You don't need a rocket. Just a normal aeroplane will take you there. What's the difference between a rocket? It's just that they have their own oxygen on board, whereas an aeroplane takes the oxygen out of the air, so then it has a combustion engine, and you can then go longer distances, so to speak. You know? So you have the idea of the islands going across, the islands going up, and the islands going down at the same time. There's so much to speak about the islands going down, but that's in a later chapter. I'm just speaking only on chapter 20 now. That comes in chapter 24 of the lower heavens. Sukadeva Goswami doesn't have very many good things to say about that in that chapter. He doesn't speak very highly of those places. So in Mahaloka, the beings worship the Lord, and then they try and advance further from there to the next planet up. And I said to you, it's a circle to Satyaloka. So they're also advancing. From Maha, they have to advance to Jana, from Jana to Tapa, from Tapa to Satya. And then in Satya, they live for 15 trillion years instead of 3 trillion. But that's still not Brahma's 311 trillion. It's nowhere near that. So the next island after Kushadweep is Shakadweep, Kranchadweep. I said Kranchadweep, right? Did I say Kusha? No, Kusha, then it's Krancha. So Krancha, they want to go to Janaloka. They want to go up to Janaloka, and that's surrounded by an ocean of milk. You know, the milky ocean where the Lord is on Anandashesh. And there was a big battle there with the demigods and demons, and it's mentioned that the whole of the island was destroyed, but it's protected by Varuna. So the demigods there, they worship Varuna Dev, and they want to go to Janaloka as their reward, so to speak. Then from Kranchadweep we have Shakadweep. And the island of Shakadweep is the very last island wherein the human beings live that have the year as the circumambulation of the sun makes a yearly cycle. So in Shakadweep, it's surrounded by, so you have milk and yogurt ocean. I don't know which comes first, one or the other. So then you have the ghee, you have the milk, and then you have the yogurt. So you can see these are all milk products. So all of these people, they're saints. Even on the islands of Blue Mandala, they have this really pure desire to become saints. I want to be saintly, you know? That's what I want in life. And so you can imagine the place they live is very beautiful, very peaceful and nice. And they similarly want to go to another place where it's very beautiful and peaceful. So they want to go to Tapaloka where they perform austerities, and then they go higher. But not only austerities, they want to help people. That's the whole point of being a saint. If you're a saintly character, you're opposite to demoniac. So instead of wanting to hurt and abuse, you want to help people. So the universe has a hierarchy, as you see. The further you go out, the purer it gets. The further you go up, the purer it gets. The further you go down, the more demoniac it gets. However, when you get to this level, and this is Maya Danava's level down here, Maya Danava's on that level in the low regions, and Lord Shiva's above that. Lord Shiva's above Bali Maharaj's place. So he's in Vitala. I forgot to mention that. So you may think, well, Lord Shiva's on Kailash, which is just above Earth, but he actually lives underneath. Kailash is like a holiday resort. The ghosts live underneath. But they're all connected. There is outer space, because the outer space is not a circle like that, it's a circle like this. So they're actually above us. Everything is above us. We're on the ground. When you're on the ground, you look up, you can see stars. When you look down, all you can see is Earth. You can't see through it. It's not possible. You can't see through water. It's not possible. You can only see through the sky. So we are always on what's called land. That they say we're floating in the stars and the skies. And it's just rubbish. So you have this this desire of the residents on the last island, Shaka. So the Shaka Island. So 1 year on that island is equal to 24 hours on the demigod's island. So Bhagavatam mentions how the sun goes north across the demigod's island and south across the Pitriloka. So it goes over Devyana and Pitriyana. It goes over the demigod's abode on Pushkara. And in that time, it's mentioned that 1 year goes by on earth. So our TOVP, although we've got to love them and they're great scholars, they're saying that that year is here on this earth. And what a joke that would make for the time in the universe. It's actually 1 year on Shakadweep. But that 1 year here is 100,000 years. Now, that's a long time. I mentioned that one lifetime on the moon, according to Prabhupada's measurements, is only 3 million. But this is 100,000 for an entire lifetime. And that's, no, sorry, for 1 year. Not an entire lifetime, 1 year. So that's Shakadweep, and that's not very far away from us. The measurements are given as expanding islands that go out, 100,000, 200,000, 400,000, 800,000. So it's not even 2 billion. It's not even very far. It's not even 2 billion. It's nowhere near. It's like 1 billion, something like that. But the scientists say they're going trillions of light years off in space. They say they're going so far and they can take measurements all over the place. So why can't they go over there? Because if they did, one day, 1 year, 100,000 years would have gone by on Earth. So they certainly wouldn't come back and find the same conditions here, that's for sure. So all these things I'm saying, they put the proper perspective, how Vyasadeva is teaching the universe is. Not how Einstein says where light is a constant everywhere. No, it's divided. Each place has its own sun and moon and star system that manifest within their atmosphere. And one revolution creates 1 day. And 360 revolutions creates a year. And that year on all of our earthly islands is only 1 day on Pushkaradweep, the next island. So on Shakadweep they worship a demigod so they can go to Satyaloka, Jana, so we have Jana, Tapa, and then we have Satya. So on Pushkaradweep they worship Brahma, and they want to go to Brahmaloka. But they're worshipping not as a monist, but in duality, it mentions. On Pushkaradweep, it's mentioned that Lord Brahma has a sitting place with 100 million golden lotus petals. So this is a code, and people are saying, well, what does it mean? We don't know. So it's just a word, and that's it. It's just some fancy description. It's not that. It's not a fancy description. It's telling us about time in the universe. So one lifetime on our Earth is given as 100 years in Kali Yuga, the center. One lifetime on Plakshadweep is given as 1,000 years. After that, nothing is given. Only this code on Pushkardweep. However, each island is double in size, and if you do the calculations, you find that each island is going 10 times as long, because the sun is going around a larger circuit. So if you have 100 years here, you have 1,000 years on Plakshadweep, you'd have 10,000 years on Shalmaladweep, 100,000 years on Kushadweep, 1,000,000 years on Crunchadweep, and then you'd have Shakadweep, was it 100 million? And then you'd have 100 million years. Your final resting place of Lord Brahma is given in the Bhagavatam as a golden lotus petal. And if you do the calculations and you take that time for our Earth, 100 million years, and you measure that by 24 hours of Brahma, and you multiply it by 360 degrees, 24 hours, it's actually 12 hours because it's only one day of Brahma, it's not a year. So 100 million years, which is the time passes on our Earth. Then you have the day of Brahma, then you have the 360 degrees, and then you multiply all these up, you find the exact lifespan of Brahma, the 311, 40 trillion, 40 billion years. I've done all the calculations, they're all in the book. Any person who would like to receive my books, just say, and I'll send them, just give me an email, I'll send them to you. And for free. I have no intention of charging anything for anything. And if I have an idea, and if any of us want to be part of that, you can. I would like to print this 2 books, or at least one, and just give it to people, whoever wants it. Because you can't sell a book that people don't want to read. It's impossible. But maybe you can give it to them, and maybe there's a chance that they'll learn something. You see here, we announced it in class, and there's good information here, but there's not very many takers. So my idea is that anyone who would like to sponsor a book, I'll print maybe 200 or 500 copies or anything, and just give them. Whoever wants them, that's it, they can have them. And whoever would like to sponsor the smallest amount or anything, of course it doesn't cost much to print books in India, and anyone can have them, you know. It would be my hope if some sannyasis have them, some Prabhupada disciples have them, some TLBP members have them, some common devotees who are interested in the topic, anyone who would like. And if you want the digital copy, that's also available. So there are many more things to discuss, but it's already getting late. Is that right, 1:05? So we've discussed time on the small amounts from the atomic, the Bhagavatam discusses it like this in the 3rd canto, and then it takes us to the life of those who live within a kalpa, and then the 5th canto continues that further and tells you about the lifespan of everyone on Bhumandala, and then relates that with the whole universe. And when you do all the different calculations, they all fit perfectly. Every sloka fits. Everything fits. So it leads you to the hypothesis that there are more than one sun going around the different islands. and that science says different, it's not correct. And if our devotees say, that's not correct, Bhagavatam says there's only one sun and that's it, well, that's also not correct. Because Bhagavatam says there's many via all the time frames that are given in the Bhagavatam. It's now 1:05. I apologize if I've talked too much or I've said things that are not good or anyone's not happy with me. If there's any questions, we can take them, and if anyone wants to leave, they can leave. And thank you very much for everyone coming.